And it's a wrap. The armor of God. Let's see what we got in store for us today. Narrating this, what we're doing.
Alright, the armor of Elohim. That's God in Hebrew. And it's in Ephesians chapter 6.
Ephesians chapter 6.
Verse 10.
Hold on. Verse 10 of Ephesians. Verse 10.
Yep.
Sit over here, so I put the laptop in between us just in case they can't hear us.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness.
We're thinking about you guys. Put the laptop closer this time. Alright, Lily.
Sweet little girl.
Okay. Ephesians 6:10.
6 verse 10. Yes.
For the rest, my brothers, be strong in the Master and in the mightiness of his strength.
Yep, and it says, and put on the whole armor of Elohim, so that you may be able to stand against the strategies, of the adversary. For our conflict is not with flesh and blood, but with principalities, and with these in authority, and with the possessors of the dark world, and with the evil spirits that are under the heavens. So that's talking right there, it's not only flesh and blood, but also spirits. So it's naming all the flesh and blood. It's naming the ones in authority, which is a lot of the government officials or people over certain areas in the world, you know.
Yeah.
And then also it's talking about people of the dark world. That's witches and warlocks and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Witchcraft. And then principalities and spirits. So, and then it says, therefore, put on the whole armor of Elohim, that you may be able to meet the evil one, and being in all respects prepared, may stand firm. Stand up, therefore, and gird your loins with the truth, and put on the breastplate of righteousness. So what it's talking about, gird your loins with truth, well, your loins is the seed.
Mm-hmm.
It's the seed that a miracle, a beautiful miracle happens, because you know, when a husband and wife come together and make a beautiful baby, and it's a miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an absolute miracle. So it's talking about the seed. The seed is the truth, the Torah, the truth of Yeshua, the truth of the prophets, the truth of the first 5 books of Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. And that's the seed that we're to gird and protect. We're not to let people falsely teach against it or twist it and pervert it to fit their own agendas and their theologies.
Yeah.
And ourselves too, we have to keep each other accountable to where we won't do anything. That's why it says iron sharpens iron as brother sharpens a brother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we keep each other accountable on what truth is and what it means. So it says, stand up therefore and gird your loins with truth, and put on the breastplate of righteousness, and defend your feet with the preparation of the good news of shalom. And now take to the take to you the confidence of faith, by which you will have power to quench the fiery darts of the evil one. And put on the helmet of salvation, and take hold of the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim. And pray with all prayers and supplications in spirit, in all times, and in the prayer be watchful in all seasons. Of course, Moedim's is seasons, and that means, of course, his feast and his weekly Sabbaths and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Praying continuously and interceding for all the set apart believers. So that's also showing that in these times of these set apart days, yes, it's good we have food and fellowship, but our main focus needs to be prayer. Prayer for others, prayer for one another, worship, because we don't want to get into what the Corinth church was doing, where they were just partying it up and that's it, and they weren't doing what the whole purpose was. And then, but anyway, it says, and also for me, that language may be given me.
That's past it.
In the opening of the mouth, so that I may boldly preach the mystery of the good news. And that's what it's saying there is the language. He's not talking about the tongue of Babel,
Mm-hmm.
like you hear a lot of churches do. Blah, 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 blah. He's talking about the Ruach giving him that language of the city he's in.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he would have to use an interpreter, and he wanted to make sure the interpreter wouldn't translate stuff inappropriately or things that would confuse people.
Yeah.
So he was praying that he would have the tongue, the language, just teach the mysteries to the people of the way he was. Because he didn't know Greek, he didn't know all these other languages.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he only knew Hebrew and Aramaic, and that's why he needed interpreters.
Yeah.
And so he prayed that, and I've seen it happen before. I've seen it where people have been under the Ruach teaching, and they've spoken in a language of that country they were in, and it was awesome because they didn't know that language. It was a miracle, and they were able to teach.
Yep.
And but this right here is showing, the breastplate of righteousness is to cover our hearts. And of course the helmet of salvation, and all this is the priestly garments as
Mm-hmm.
well. Because what did Yeshua say? We're a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Israel has always been a holy nation of royal priests. Levites were the priests to the Israelites, and Israelites were to be priests to the nations. And so, it's always been that way. Even in Exodus, it says, Yahweh says to Israel, you are my holy nation, which holy means set apart,
Mm-hmm.
and you're of a royal priesthood. And it's always showing that Israel was always to be a priesthood to the nations, to graft the other nations in and bringing them in truth. It's like if I was in the tribe of Judah and you were serving the god Molech or serving one of the Egyptian gods.
Yeah.
Well, what I would do is I would teach you the truth, and of course you would be like, okay, wow, this is truth, and then I would start discipling you under the court of the Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
Where the court of the Gentiles that's where Gentiles who came out of their pagan ways and started the walk of faith. It's always a slow walk. It's like Abraham. He got called out at age 75, didn't get circumcised at age 99.
Mm-hmm.
Many years he had to walk and get his heart circumcised, and he was discipled by Yahweh himself. That's the greatest teacher ever,
Yep.
And so he was discipled by Yahweh. And so that's where we're to come in. We're to be discipled by the Ruach, by Yahweh, and then we're to go and make other disciples, just like Yeshua commanded us before he left. He said, go and make more disciples. Go and teach and go and immerse people and do all the things that he taught us, which is the ways of the Torah. And so that's what we're to do, getting people saved under the banner of Yeshua.
Yeah.
So, and then once you finally made full conversion, and you would go through circumcision, you'd go through all that stuff, then you would be a part of my tribe.
Yeah.
But that's only when you came to full conversion and from your ways of life. So the first thing is to acknowledge that Yahweh is Elohim and that you're a sinner, and you cast your sins away and you cut off the pagan ways, and then you start your journey, you start your path of salvation. Because we all, as Paul says, we all walk in faith with fear and trembling.
Yep.
We all work on our salvation.
I'm making an executive command here, and this podcast is, just the overview of everything. And then I feel we're gonna, over the course of the week, go over each specific thing.
Oh yeah, exactly.
In this podcast, so this one's just the overview.
Yep, because we're going to go through the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, because there's deep stuff about each thing, and there's even the Old Testament teaches of the armor of light.
Yep.
And the armor of light was the priestly garments. That's what they considered the armor of light.
Yep, and just like I said today, I think there's big significance in how putting on each thing chronologically.
Yep, exactly. Yep, and the first thing they would put on was the white linen trousers and long tunic, and that shows a purity. We have to be pure, and that's what's so awesome about milk. You know, milk, when it's made into milk, before it's milk and white, it's red, it's blood. It's blood. So when it goes through the udder and goes through all the filtering of the udder, it becomes pure white. Oh my goodness, that's a prophetic picture right there. If when you come under the blood of the Lamb, whether it's Yeshua, or of course back then in ancient Israel, it'd be the blood of the lambs or goats or whatever they slaughtered, then you would be pure and white. And you're to go on. Now there's going to be times you fall. There's going to be times you stumble. But as Paul says, a righteous man gets back up and keeps going.
Yep.
You know, in battle, in wars. That's why I love medieval movies or stuff like that where there's sword fighting, because it's showing, you know, it's a beautiful picture of what happens in a war, because you're going to fall, you're going to stumble, you're going to trip over rocks, you're going to, you know, because you're so focused on the battle itself, you're going to trip over little rocks, you're going to trip over these things or that, or you got to watch your back, and you and your brothers have to watch each other, and you're fighting and fighting and fighting until the day the king comes in and sets everything new. He's going to come in with a flank, you know. He's going to flank them out of nowhere. He's going to basically, Yeshua's going to come back. When he comes back, it's going to be a surprise attack, in a sense. I mean, Hasatan knows it's coming, but he doesn't know when. So he's going to do all he can in these several years of tribulation, which I believe we're in right now, to do a lot of havoc against the body of believers.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, we're to keep our armor of light on, which is the high priest garments. And the first one is being pure, which means set apart. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, because no one is ever perfect. Just as Paul said, there's none perfect, no, not one. But we are to strive for perfection to the best of our ability as human beings. And when we fall, we don't hit ourselves up. We don't need to do that to each other, beat each other's up. We're to come with a loving compassion and help each other up, and also help ourselves up. Because what did Yeshua say? He said, "These are the signs that people will know you're my disciples, my followers, is if you love one another." You know, if I see you fall, or if you see if I fall, I'm not to come with you with pitchforks and signs saying you're going to hell and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm to come and say, man, let's work on this. Let's work on your weakness. You know, let's work on this part of the area of your life this week. And then the next level of faith, though, you're going to find something else. You're going to find something else your weekend. You're going to find something else you come short of Yahweh's glory, because we're never going to reach perfection until Yeshua comes back.
Yep.
We will be a bride without spot or wrinkle. That means that we're striving for perfection, but we're not going to reach that perfected level until Messiah comes.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll rule and reign with him forever, and we won't have to do teachings like this to one another. We'll have to teach it to the Gentile nations, but we won't have to teach it to one another. You know, we won't have to teach the brotherhood, the kingdom. The kingdom will already know it. It will be in our hearts and our minds, and we'll sin no more. You won't have to teach no more. It'll be a moment of great shalom.
We're almost already in the kingdom, because we're already set apart and with our own brothers and sisters, you know?
That's right. Yeah, we're already preparing for that. Because what did Yeshua say? He said, go and prepare the way. So what we're doing is preparing the way. You know, when a bride would get ready for their wedding, the older women would prepare the woman, whether it's perfecting her cooking, whether it's soaking in myrrh water and bath water and myrrh baths and frankincense baths and oils and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was, they were preparing the bride to get ready for the groom. And that's what we're to do. We're to prepare ourselves. We're to prepare our Jewish brothers and those that are grafted in, and prepare the way for Messiah. And what's beautiful is, last Feast of Tabernacles, they had a big wedding dress under the flag, Jewish flag, and they said, and they looked to the heavens and they said, Yahweh, we're ready for the Mashiach. We're the bride. We're ready. We wish him to come. Mm-hmm. And what did Yeshua say? You will not see me until the day to come, Sanhedrin, which is the 70 elders of Israel. Until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. They're already preparing their hearts for that, because the veil is being lifted from their eyes. So we don't need to judge them, because Yahweh is the one that blinded them. But we're to go and do our best to teach them, and we're to do our best to teach others that are coming out of the church and coming out of the things that are pagan.
Yep.
Because we were all there once, and now we're to teach each other the truth, because it will set you free. Just like when I first figured out that it wasn't Romanistic armor, like a lot of people teach, it blew my mind away, because it makes perfect sense now when you put two and two together.
Yeah.
Because Shaul, which is Paul, was a rabbi, and he would not have taught about paganistic Roman armor.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Like,
he would have taught about.
I mean, if they're at the end times, they're talking about, you know, another Rome coming up. Why would they talk about Roman armor?
And they actually thought at that time that the Roman Empire was the anti-Messiah, and it was, and it still is, because it's still alive. It's alive in America and alive in the Catholic Church.
And one thing a lot of people don't realize is that if you actually read the Bible, you find out what the anti-Messiah is. It's anything that doesn't believe Yeshua was the Son of God.
That, and also teaches a different Messiah, saying that Messiah taught against Torah, and he said we're to do away with Torah, and it's not to be alive.
My personal belief is Muslim, but that's up to debate. That's just my personal belief, because the way things are running, and you know, the Muslims are the most horrendous towards Christians.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, now the Catholic Church and the Muslim Brotherhood have come together. You know, the imams, which that's like Muslim rabbis, teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Imams have come together with the Roman Catholic Church, and they're now made this thing called Chrislam, and it's the Catholic belief and the Muslim belief in one.
Mm.
And if you would look up research and history, guess what Muhammad came from? He came from the Catholic Church.
Really?
Yeah. And then he went into the place where the Muslim belief is the strongest, and he started teaching about Allah and all this stuff, because Allah isn't even God's name; it's a pagan god.
Mm-hmm.
But he was morphing the Catholic. That's what the Catholic Church did. They took all these pagan things and morphed it into one religion. That's the anti-Messiah. It's the one world religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's already in effect. It's been in effect. That's why the apostles and disciples thought that they were living in the end days. They never thought it would be this long, you know. They thought the generation they were in would be the last generation.
Yep.
You know, a lot of them did, you know. Now some of them, of course, like John, or maybe even Shaul, Paul, maybe they didn't even, maybe they believed that it wasn't until like later down the road. But they had a desire to see the kingdom to come. So that's why they did what they did. And that's why we're to do what we need to do, you know, teaching those who are awakening. You know, we're not to go out there with pitchforks and, you know, big signs saying you're going to hell, and go on the sidewalks and the byways and the highways and all that kind of stuff like that. All we're to do is be a living menorah, shine bright, and people will come to us. Because it says in the last days, the Gentiles will cling to the tzitzits. And the tzitzits are the fringes we wear on our garments, and they'll cling to the tzitzits and say, please teach us truth, for our forefathers gave us lies. So they're going to see, there's going to be Gentiles that awaken to what they've been doing in the church and other places, and they'll be like, you know what, this ain't right. There's something more, and I'm going to find it. And they're going to find people like us. They're going to clean up our tzitzits. I actually had one lady do it. She found me and she said, I'm doing what prophecy says. I'm going to fulfill prophecy. I'm cleaning your tzitzits. Teach me truth. So from that moment on, we've taught her truth.
Yep.
And now we're at the moment where it's all coming down to the wire. You know, the sulfur's hitting the fan. We got all this stuff just bubbling over. But we're still to stay focused on truth and living right as best as we can in these pagan lands, until Yeshua comes back and rules and reigns on Mount Zion, and he establishes Torah, all of it, fully back in motion.
Yep.
Because the temple will be built, and that's where we're to go and live. Because there's going to cause angels to come all over the world to pick up people like us, you know, that are still alive in Him, and bring us to His city. And if we're not already there, you know. So that's what we're to do. We're to prepare and get ready. You know, we're to be the bride without spot or wrinkle, getting ready, and be like the 5 wise virgins that are having our oil in our jars and lit. And all 10 were virgins, you know.
Yep.
So it's not saying that, you know, a lot of people won't make it. There's going to be guests. Because there's going to be the bride and there's going to be guests. You got to choose who you want to be.
Yep.
You know, I've come too far to not be a bride. You know, I've sacrificed a lot, and I'm not. You know, we've all have. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to give up and settle for being a guest. I'm not going to give up and settle being outside the kingdom.
Because you're not married until you're married.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, you even when you get married, they're saying they ask, basically if you're not ready. What's that they say? The guy says, or if anyone has something to say. I don't remember what they say.
Oh,
but
yeah,
basically
when the
they have a
minister-
choice,
yeah.
to make sure.
Yeah, when the minister asks, does anyone have anything to say against these two making union? If so, speak now or forever hold your peace,
Yep.
And so, and that's what is
That's
the
the
rock.
adversary.
Yeah, that's the adversary, And he's going to come against us and say, well, this person did that and that person did this. And he's going to say, I erased that. I don't remember that.
Yep.
I've forgiven them. The same as with, and that's what we're to do. We're to get ready and prepare the way in this season and get ourselves ready and others ready as best we can
Yep.
and do what he wants us to do.
Ready for that prayer?
Oh, yeah. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face to shine towards you. And Yahweh lift up his countenance to you and give you shalom. Amen and amen.
My pastor at my old church used to say that.